And we're back. All right, so we were talking about dispensaries opening across the state of Minnesota because of adult use licensure. But there's other ways that dispensaries have been opening across Minnesota, which is our tribal nations.
Yes.
All throughout Minnesota, we see adult use dispensaries. I believe there's 4 currently open. There are a couple slotted to open soon. It's exciting to see that industry continue to evolve, and it sounds like it's evolving off tribal land.
And we've been hearing about this opportunity for a number of months.
Yeah. And that's what I think is sort of funny about this, is we're talking about this because it is, of course, news and current events. But when we get to the end of the story, I think listeners to the show will realize we're not really talking about anything new. This is a lot of sort of the coming to fruition of conversations that have been happening for months. We've got White Earth, which we previously talked about, buying a previous liquor store in Moorhead and turning that into a dispensary that it looks like is scheduled to open middle of March.
You know, the tribes have been working on this for years.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. I think the opportunity for a first mover advantage goes to a First Nation, and the logic is there. It's a plant, it's a medicine, it's medicinal, and it's meant to be meditative at times.
Yeah, and the Twin Cities of the West. You know, you got it in Moorhead. It's a cool way to tap into that North Dakota market without explicitly.
Strategically being on the border is an advantage in the cannabis dispensary market.
Totally. And it's cool seeing some of the numbers behind the scenes. So they have a grow facility. They've been growing about 700 pounds a month to supply various dispensaries across Minnesota. And they've scheduled to double that because they're also opening a location in St. Cloud.
You know, cannabis is one of the only agricultural products that the tribes are able to move from one tribe to another. And White Earth without any taxation. And White Earth is leading this. Like, White Earth is the most outward grower right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they've had flower at, I'm almost certain, every dispensary except Native Care right now.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
So for those in Moorhead, you'll have to let us know come mid-March what this is like. But I'll be going early March for that Dairy Queen season opener. I've talked about this before on the show. I won't go too much into it, but so I'll be able to see it just a week or two before it opens, and I'll take pictures.
Oh, and you do have in here, I'd heard about this. They also bought a St. Cloud location.
Yeah, so they bought the old Leaf line that was in St. Cloud, just right next to that Walmart, and they're going to be turning that into an adult use dispensary. They don't really need to do a ton.
It's next to a Walmart?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Very easily accessible.
Walmart, for those in Minnesota who don't know, Walmart is a competitor to Target, and it's been around. It's a big box retailer. A lot of people in Minnesota don't know that.
What are their DEI initiatives?
I believe they're on.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So OCM spokesperson Josh Collins, friend of the show. He had a quote that I want to read. He said, "We continue to be in active compact negotiations with multiple tribal nations in Minnesota related to the adult use market. We will have additional information to share when we have signed compact in place, which we expect soon."
Yeah, the big thing that I've been hearing about is, are they going to be able to have 5 recreational cannabis dispensaries, or are they going to be able to have 10 recreational cannabis dispensaries?
Wow. It's an interesting market. I'm excited to see how hemp, adult use, medical, tribal, all sort of interplay together to create our uniquely Minnesota
a game of basketball.
Tapestry. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, so more to come on that. We'll definitely make sure to update people in March when we have the first off-tribal dispensary selling adult use flower legally in Minnesota open. And, of course, when we have those compacts signed, because we continue to watch that. And as of right now, it's just a lot of soon.
Yeah, the tribal market is probably the fastest evolving market currently in Minnesota.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the last news story that I wanted to talk about today was an article that I read in NPR. And there were just a couple things in it that we don't need to talk about the article itself, or the main point of the article, which is entitled U.S. Cannabis Shoppers Face a Market Flush with Illegal Weed. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but people are growing cannabis illegally in the United States.
No.
I know.
In legal markets?
I know. And it's leading to some challenges for people that are trying to regulate legal markets. Now, there are a couple things that I thought that were interesting in it.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. It is tricky. Being the guys that are saying, hey, we're following the rules. Why won't you go arrest them for doing what we're doing and we're doing 5 years ago?
Because Chinese criminal groups are...
Chinese criminal groups, normal turning against growers, the legacy versus legal market. There are a lot of things that lead to this market the way we have it today. So let's sort of talk through it. Now, there was a quote from Paul Armentano.
Yes.
Armentano, I think I'm saying that right.
Armentano.
Thank you, the head of Normal. And he was talking about how having a market that lacks transparency and accountability is tough for consumers.
Yes.
He said, whether I was getting cannabis or alcohol or my broccoli from an entirely unregulated market, I'd be concerned about any number of issues.
That's why you would get your produce at Walmart.
Exclusively from Walmart, one of the most regulated and safe food places in America. What I thought was so interesting about this quote is Normal, an organization that was started to really fight back against cannabis regulation generally, is now really sort of singing the tune of, no, cannabis regulation keeps cannabis consumers safe. So if people are breaking the rules, maybe they should be punished.
Now, I'm going to highlight reform on this, the R in Normal. And, you know, I'm going to hang my hat on the R that allows them to evolve.
Totally. And that's the thing is, if they are here to defend the cannabis consumer, that does look differently now than it did back in the 70s. But it's very funny to hear them talk about the concern of unregulated cannabis.
Tanner, I'm hearing you now, and this story just came out.
Yeah, it just came out the other day.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this. The article starts with U.S. cannabis consumers. This is a national issue.
It is. Now, Jordan, when you buy cannabis, I imagine you're not driving to a legal state to go to a dispensary to say, hey, can I have an eighth of that? And then smoking it all there and then driving back to Minnesota and saying, wow, that was really great. You're probably buying it from like someone in an unregulated market, right?
Yeah.
Technically. Yeah. I do as well. And I have for decades. And what I thought was really interesting is that what we have in this news article, an expert from the Brookings Institute cited by NPR, in claiming that Chinese criminal organizations are drawn to the cannabis industry because of its relative low risk to gain a foothold in those communities. There's relatively low law enforcement pressure, unlike harder drugs such as fentanyl and methamphetamine. And it doesn't really cost a ton to start producing this drug. You can just, get some lights, get some seeds, get some cannabis. So, Jordan, let me ask you, are you funding illegal Chinese organizations and perhaps even the Chinese Communist Party when you are purchasing cannabis? In fact, they say that this has some money laundering that also increasingly is intertwined with human smuggling. Is your cannabis linked to human smuggling?
Depends. Do I get TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay, then no.
No, all right. No, yeah. Definitely.
I'd say there's people in the city that Jordan lives in that are purchasing cannabis that is traced back to these sources.
Almost certainly. And I get NPR curious to dig into this. So just like any good reporter, what did they do? Well, they reached out to the Chinese government and said, hey, are you guys growing a bunch of weed illegally in the United States and selling it to a bunch of consumers to try to, flood the market or try to get a bunch of money laundered or something?
NPR did this?
NPR did this. Chinese reporters, unfortunately, NPR, they just never heard back.
No.
So,
wow, I had no idea he was going to say that.
Who knows? Now, of course, the story continues to evolve because not only do we have to worry about the dangers of, legal rights organizations turning against legal rights and Chinese illegal groups participating in our cannabis cultivation, but also we now have criminal cannabis sellers outpacing licensed vendors. Meaning there are businesses operating in the legacy side of the market that are selling more cannabis than businesses that were just started in the last couple of years. Can you believe that? There are people ignoring federal laws and shipping cannabis across state lines?
Wow.
Oh, wait, we got to hide this. Sorry. No shipping cannabis across state lines.
No, I mean, the black market, it just continues. It's only legal in what, 20, half the country. So...
Yeah, only 26 states.
26 states,
yeah.
and not all are online if you didn't know that.
Yeah, that's But number 24, we're getting close. It was so interesting to see this article come out, and I thought I was going to read about a bunch of people growing THCA flower and selling it across state lines, which is happening. That doesn't really come up much in this whole article. Instead, what comes up is the dangers of Chinese involvement. You have people concerned about the harms of unregulated cannabis. You have people talking about the black market having product that was indistinguishable from legal regulated products. So consumers just can't even tell, is this a safe product or is this a dangerous? I just think
there's going to be
raise a lot of
mold
questions.
and these banned pesticide and herbicides that are getting into the illegal product. So that's a grave concern, said the head of enforcement for California's Department of Cannabis Control.
Absolutely. So I was reading this, expecting this whole article to end in this big reefer madness, I'll say, a swell of we really should be tightening the belts on this industry. But actually it went in an entirely different direction. Now, it said many states have mismanaged the transition from the illegal to the legal, focusing too much on regulating legal weed businesses without helping them compete against criminal organizations.
Yes.
So here's a quote. After states pass legalization, they'll spend a couple of years. Where is that coming?
This makes sense. Yeah.
Coming up with a licensing regime and figuring out what the regulations are going to be and issuing licenses. But there hasn't been a lot of focus on what to do about the illegal market. And in a lot of places, enforcement just hasn't been a priority. Instead, what you're having is these, fancy roundabout licensure systems created to craft the exact type of industry that we want. And then we just have a bunch of people doing whatever they want anyways.
It's like sandcastles.
It's exactly like a sandcastle. You can build it so beautiful, but if the tide of the entire industry just sweeps towards that,
You're wiped out,
baby. It's gone.
You're wiped out and you're forced to panic. Have you ever wiped out? You're like, wah, and you start being really chaotic. And
too many times. I went to a rec center for the first time, and it was
for $30.
dangerous.
Jeez, wow.
Now, what I
You
love
only
is,
went once.
I know. Never again. Yeah, John gave me his visitor pass. Now, every single person interviewed by NPR for this project said they expect it to get easier as time goes on, as this industry just develops more and more around the country. As more people are buying through a legal, regulated market, there's going to be less people buying from their neighbors. You guys do buy tomatoes from your neighbors?
Sometimes my friends give me tomatoes.
Yeah, and you could go to your neighbor and say, can I buy the tomatoes you're growing on that plant over there? You could, but most of us just go to the grocery store. And I think what this study shows looking at other states is that most consumers, maybe not your home growers, but most consumers, they just eventually go to the store.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's also easy to paint that picture, but we'll never know exactly how many cannabis consumers there really are.
No. At least 5, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
6.
Maybe 6. Maybe 7.
7. At least a bunch, a million.
Yeah, so if you're ever asking yourself, why should I grow my own weed? Why should I buy cannabis from my friends and family instead of from, some distributor from around the country? Just think you're fighting against Chinese money laundering. Yeah. Every time you smoke a bowl of some Minnesota-grown flower.
It's honestly probably the most patriotic thing you could do.
Yeah. I think they should send out some new checks for everyone, like reimbursement checks, but explicitly for weed. Like, that's what I use my...
Subsidized.
Yeah. That's
subsidized.
the last one was for.
Plugs, yeah.
That and GameStop.
Is TikTok still around?
That's...
Yeah, roaring. It's better than ever.
Follow us on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Follow us on LinkedIn.
Oh, wait, you already do. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, well, that's the news that we got from this week. That NPR article, I mean, obviously not a ton of news from it, but I just had to bring it in because I think it's so interesting. Anytime you have people talking about the harms of legal cannabis and illegal cannabis, not being the illegal cannabis itself, but the gangs, the wars, all of it,
It's an ever natural battle.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, we'll be back in just a minute with an interview that you're doing with our buddy Bryant Jones. So stick around for that. And then at the end, of course, we got our high notes. So stay tuned.